Okay, welcome back. We're on page 263 talking about dynamic disk, and it's a cool thing, and it does kind of mimic RAID, but for that matter, that's just not the way I use my machine. If I want to have RAID, I'm going to have a separate RAID configuration on a separate box. Okay, not inside Windows. So a mount point. A mount point could be a volume. Most of the time when we mount things, we do drive letters, right? But we don't have to. I mean, you could just say, give me a mount point. You don't need, in fact, if you were to go to one of these guys, for example, if I was just to go to disk management, okay, and I was going to attach one of these guys, I'm not really going to, okay, well, here we go. If I want to, basically, I want to tell it I want to change the drive letter, I'm not going to do that. But you could just say mount as an NTFS folder. In other words, it doesn't have to have a drive letter. Remember, first of all, it's not that many, right? Okay, I'll give a good example. Let's say I had a server that had 100 drives. Well, I can't use drive letters, I'd run out of letters, right? 26 letters in the alphabet, and A and B and C are already taken up. So sometimes you don't want to use drive letters. File systems on page 265. So the file system is picked at the time when you format your drive. You get to pick whether it's exFAT or it's NTFS, and you've seen those choices before, right? When you come to format something. The original file allocation table, very old. It was only used for like floppy drives and very, very small capacity hard drives. I mean, really small. So that one, no one uses that. NTFS, that's called the New Technology File System. It has an awful lot of extra fields into it. It natively supports, upper and lower case. Remember, the original FAT did not. So it has permissions and encryption and all sorts of other things that are very useful that weren't available in floppy drives. Resilient file system. This is actually newer. It has some really cool features. For example, NTFS could, if you had a crash, kind of get stuck in the middle, not figuring out what files were open and which ones were not. And the resilient file system is newer, it's better, it has better resiliency, a slightly better performance, slightly available scalability, just a replacement essentially for NTFS. But it does not support this really cool thing that we're going to be using next, which is the File System Resource Manager guy. So it's really cool, but until Windows comes up with a replacement for the new utility that we're going to do on the hands-on, I'm not using it. And then exFAT. This is the extended file allocation table. So for larger disks and usually for USB flash drive, that's the only thing I use it for. And it was at one time proprietary, and then no one could use it, but now Microsoft just licenses it out, and I don't know what the license is because I don't ever pay for it. And I'm going to skip the thing about mounting a VHD as a drive letter. It's useful, but boring. Moving on. Page 267, a distributed file system. So when I have a mount point, I basically have to tell people that it exists on server A, and the shared volume is called engineering. So everyone knows if they want to go to the shared folder, they have to type in the server name / server1 / engineering. But that's pretty bad, because what if I want to move things around? So distributed file system allows me to use the host name. So I'm going to be going to, whatever my default name for my domain. So my domain name is, CIS4376 / engineering. And now you don't need to know the name of the server, because if everyone has mapped drive letters to this server, and then I take the server down or rename the server, everyone's broke everywhere. They'll all be calling, going, I can't get to my files. But if you're a distributed guy, then I can set it up so that when people swap out a server, that they would never know. I'd go in on the weekend, I'd swap out the server, to a different physical server and do it. I can even have combined many different shares all in there. In other words, I could have a distributed file system that contained a share from this server and from that server and from that server, all showing up as one. Kind of cool. In other words, you never need to know physically where things are stored. You just go to the share, and the share says engineering and magic happens. Okay, so instead of doing the server name, you do the domain name instead. Okay, so there's two roles that would pull this thing off: a DNF namespace, where you create the logical structure of these things, and the DFS replication. This is kind of cool because I could have not just that, but for example, I have a DFS share, and I have a site someplace else that has identical DFS share. So I could set them up to replicate each other. Oh, that'd be really fantastic. But obviously, we're not going to be doing that today. Okay, so we've reached the end of this chapter, and we'll stay tuned for the next video.